Great. Thank you for joining us. And Phil, thank you so much for your time in joining us today. And just had a few questions for you. One, the energy industry, we are facing unprecedented array of challenges right now. We have the issue of integrating renewables. We have massive transmission build-outs that need to occur. We're building up new clean coal and nuclear facilities. Trillions of dollars being spent in the coming decades on these issues. So, but at the same time, new technologies and businesses are rapidly emerging and getting established. I'm just wondering, do you see as the major challenges and opportunities and threats facing the power industry from those game-changing developments?
Well, I think the most important one is the focus. I'm reminded of the Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy came up trying to get to Oz. Mm-hmm. And she asked the Tin Man where to go, and he said, well, if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter what road you take. And I think we're a little bit of this, we don't know what road to take problem right now, being a little bit eclectic. If you look at Europe, for example, and I spent a lot of time in Europe working on supergrid, ETSO has came out with a plan of how do you achieve a common market. And within that plan, they've got a stair-step way of how not only to couple the markets, but how to handle congestions, how to handle renewables, and how to handle growth. So now you have the whole European community looking to see how they can knit all this together, have a more comprehensive and better grid. Mm-hmm. China's doing the same thing. You're seeing it to a lesser extent, but certainly happening in Brazil. And in the United States now, we're chasing a lot of things, but no one has said, which way are we going? Where is Oz? And I think determining where Oz is our single biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm. Well, sort of playing off of that, what do you see, what can Congress and the Obama administration and the federal regulators do to help the industry tackle those tasks? And is it a matter of vision, or are there other things that they should be doing?
Well, I think it's a matter, particularly important in the United States, of having a focus on what we're to achieve. Mm-hmm. We got many resources, a lot of money being spent on things that may not be coupled together, strengthened together. And in electricity, one thing affects everything else. You don't have just transmission, you don't have just nuclear, you don't have just clean coal, you don't have just renewables, you don't have just smart grid. It's a single machine. Mm-hmm. And so we need to focus from our policy leaders on what they want to have happen for this country for the single machine. We want 20% of our nation to be provided by renewable power by date certain. Let's state it. We want to be able to have the least cost power over time. We want to reduce dependence of oil and this, a clear statement and a focus that we can all get together bipartisan way, state and federal way, so we can move forward as a nation and put together the programs and development to achieve that objective by date certain. And that doesn't exist. You hear different speeches by different policymakers, but there's no coherent vision of where we want to be by date certain when it comes to the electrical grid of America.
Mm-hmm. How do you think has the economic downturn affected the power industry and its ability to keep the lights on in an affordable manner that is socially acceptable?
Well, it's affected us in two ways, negative and more negative. For example, we were going along and certain transmission lines were planned to be built, and companies put some significant investment because they had approval from an RTO or an approval agency. And then with the economic downturn, somebody took a deterministic calculation and said, oh, gee, we're going to have economic growth of 1.5%, not 3%, so therefore this line isn't going to be needed from 2015 to 2017. So companies have put tens of millions of dollars in preparation to build a transmission line, and all of a sudden they're just yanked up short and say, put everything on hold. Well, you can't put things on hold. So the lack of certainty, and that's been a very difficult problem for anyone to plan and move forward. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is we've taken the short-run view of here, but we still haven't gone back to what I was talking about earlier. With investment in this high capital-intensive industry, you have to have a long-term view and put it together. And there's a lot of capital reasons to do that, because very few utilities, as big as they can be, have the wherewithal to put 6 to 20% of their capital at risk in the long term. So you can't put capital at risk with those in certain economies in long-term investment. So it's a negative and a negative.
Well, the federal government has spent billions of dollars on energy infrastructure and smart grid endeavors and energy efficiency and research and development. all in the name of economic stimulus. Have those investments made a difference?
I think the book is still out for a large degree. We know that a lot of it is going into short-term operational gains, not long-term capital improvements. And we really won't know, I don't think, for a number of years as to what happened. Certainly, a lot of what went into was to go into situational awareness programs. And by that I mean we have a dumb grid. We really don't know all the equipment. So a lot of the investment went in to help us understand the situational awareness, to get more data and information off the equipment in the grid. And certainly that's positive and have a long run help. We need to do that. So I think those type of programs are helpful. Other type, I don't know. I mean, we shotgun through a lot of money, a lot of things, but what's the end result and where is it going? And I think that's a question that's still out.
Well, Philip, I want to thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.